our first speaker, who I am super excited to introduce, and it's Aileen Campbell, the Cabinet Secretary for Communities and Local Government. Welcome.
Thank you, Sarah, and apologies to everybody, because clearly the problem wasn't the technology, it was me that was causing the problem there. So it's nice to be with you, albeit virtually, and in many respects it couldn't be a more different gathering than what we experienced last year, exactly 1 year ago. We were looking forward to the Social Enterprise World Forum in Addis Ababa and the launch of the second Social Enterprise Action Plan in early 2020. And of course, this time last year, we were launching the 2019 Social Enterprise Census. So I don't think any of us had any notion of needing to cope with a global pandemic that would see life turned on its head, see us having to physically keep apart from friends and loved ones, or endure the suffering and the trauma that has been caused by the virus. And of course, each and every one of us will have our own stories to tell of how COVID-19 has impacted on us, stories that will be individual and personal to us all. But what we have all collectively witnessed has been the deep-rooted and unfair nature of the world and the society we live in. COVID has impacted on us all, but it's not done so in a way that is fair or equitable. The economic and societal consequences of having to cope and manage this nasty virus has shown the frailty of the economic system that we're part of. Low pay, 0 hours contracts, poor conditions, insecure housing, increased living costs, poor digital connectivity, isolation, food insecurity. The real tip of the inequality iceberg, all meaning those with least have been impacted most. And the pandemic has also revealed just how much we rely on those in the sectors that have often been undervalued: retail, refuse collection and care. So the unprecedented nature of the situation required an unprecedented response, and at every level we have seen that. And amongst the harshness of COVID-19, what has gladdened my heart has been the inspiring way that individuals, businesses and communities have stepped up and risen to the challenges that we've encountered. And I'd certainly like to thank each and every one of you for that. Care and compassion, motivating acts of kindness that have helped generate the resilience that the country needs and continues to need. And even though the third and social enterprise sectors have been significantly impacted by COVID, it has been social enterprise and the third sector that have played a pivotal role in driving forward the acts and actions that the country have required, playing a central role in supporting our communities and the individuals that make up your communities. Because without you, the country would not be where it is today, and I sincerely thank you for that endeavour. And at a national level, this government could not have responded in the way that we did had it not been for the partnership of the social enterprise and third sector. The Third Sector Resilience Fund has invested £22 million so far and has focused on the immediate cash flow challenges facing organisations. And these quick actions have saved an estimated 15,000 jobs and helped hundreds of organisations to survive. And I would like to put on record my thanks and appreciation to Firstport, to the Cora Foundation, Social Investment Scotland, for the support that they have provided in helping establish and administer that Resilience Fund at incredibly short notice. Similarly, the Wellbeing Fund and Supporting Communities Fund have also played a vital role supporting the third sector and ensuring that they, in turn, could support people and communities. The Wellbeing Fund, which has invested £35 million so far, has been led by a partnership of Cora, SCVO and third sector initiatives, and provided support to social enterprises and the third sector organisations, helping them to work with at-risk people most affected by the pandemic. The Supporting Communities Fund has invested £17.5 million so far through a locally driven response led by community anchor organisations such as development trusts. Working in partnership with officials, they acted as a conduit for funding with work with local charities, third sector organisations, volunteers and communities of interest. And across all of these funds, collaboration with independent funders and partners in the third sector has been swift and it has been effective. And now, as we tentatively emerge from lockdown, we're all starting to consider how we move forward into the recovery phase, but also how we learn from the ways that we worked over the last 5 months, how we capture and protect the things that worked well, and how we don't simply revert back to the broken system that entrenched inequality that I described earlier. And we do that against a backdrop that is incredibly challenging, societally, economically and financially, and with the additional concurrent risks of Brexit uncertainty and the colder, more expensive winter months ahead. But there is opportunity in amongst this, which will require us all to work together. And as ever, social enterprise and what you represent in terms of showing enterprise with social purpose and a different economic model, not solely focused on the bottom line, is ahead of the game. And you'll be critical for the country's recovery and in terms of helping setting the direction that we need to travel. And while we'll continue to support the sector, we understand that the support required has changed. That is why later today, through the Programme for Government, we'll be announcing the £25 million Third Sector and Communities Recovery Programme to be delivered as part of the Communities Fund. And further details will follow, but that aims to support the third sector organisations and communities to adapt to the challenges of COVID, placing business support provided through Just Enterprise front and centre, with community enterprise helping third sector organisations to pivot towards more sustainable trading activity. So funding is important, but so too are the system changes that we need to bring about the more comprehensive change that now sees concepts such as the wellbeing economy move from being viewed as something that's niche towards being the way that we need to do business in Scotland. For us and the government, that means an economy that delivers increased quality of life through a net zero and sustainable economy. And doing that involves balancing economic, social and environmental challenges, looking beyond headline economic indicators and striving for an economy that is prosperous, just, sustainable and resilient. And we're not building this from scratch. Our national performance framework, with its focus on outcomes and wellbeing, guides our work and provides a framework to help move our aspiration into a reality. And it measures a whole range of issues that affect people's wellbeing, from unemployment to the performance of our care system, through to access, green spaces and in our communities. And the scope of the framework reflects our understanding of wellbeing in its broadest sense. It's about societal wellbeing, not just happiness. And when we published the revised version of the framework back in 2018, we made wellbeing an explicit part of our national purpose as a country. And this holistic approach is guiding that approach to economic policy and our actions against climate change in support of local development and community wealth building, as well as our plans for economic recovery after COVID. And through this path, we are collaborating and learning with other governments, and we have a shared ambition to promote societal wellbeing through the Wellbeing Economy Governments. That initiative was launched by Scotland, New Zealand and Iceland and will be joined by Wales this year. But crucially, building a wellbeing economy, like achieving progress towards the NPF, is not just a task for government alone. Government policy only has a partial influence in many of these indicators. So for us to be successful, it needs to be a whole Scotland effort. And you're critical to this work, but the truth is this approach has been your bread and butter for some time, and the rest of us are playing catch up. You set an example that can help inspire us in government and also the wider business community. And the Scottish Government also wants to expand community wealth building in Scotland as a way to deliver on our ambitions for an inclusive and sustainable wellbeing economy, ensuring that local people and businesses have a genuine stake in producing, owning and enjoying the wealth that they create. And building on the work already underway in places like Ayrshire, which has secured £3 million for community wealth building through their regional growth deal, we are now keen to work collaboratively with 5 additional areas in Clackmannanshire, South of Scotland, Western Isles, Tafe Cities and Glasgow City region partners to produce individual community wealth building action plans for each. Local anchor institutions, whether public, private or third sector, are very important to the areas they're located in, and given the large amount of investment they oversee, how they choose to purchase, employ and invest in their communities really matters. We recognise, though, that no one size fits every part of Scotland, and it's vital that local businesses of all kinds, communities and public services are involved in the designing and the building their local economic and community wealth building solutions. However, we want early work with partners to focus on practical interventions that increase and maximise the impact of public sector spend staying local to create and secure more local well-paid jobs and broader community impact. Community wealth building provides a framework for that for SMEs and social enterprises. It provides an opportunity to engage with large institutions to open up new prospects for growth via procurement and supply chain development, Designing opportunities to create jobs and training via contracting and linking these opportunities to those who might otherwise struggle to get work can help to create access to a skilled local workforce. And that's good for communities, but it's also good for our employers too. And there's also a good practice to point to, and we've made great strides in delivering more sustainable and inclusive economic opportunity. And we also see real enthusiasm of the social enterprise sector for this model, and believe that social enterprises have a really crucial and important role to play in community wealth building and implementing a wellbeing economy. And while focus has been rightly on tackling the pandemic, we also can't lose the momentum behind our efforts to tackle climate change. Our recovery in Scotland must be green to respond to the twin challenges of climate change and biodiversity loss, ensuring a just transition to net zero that will build a greener, fairer and more equal society and economy that leaves nobody behind. And Scotland's recovery will place the drivers of wellbeing, such as health, living standards, quality of environment, security of employment at its core. And that means targeting our investment at what brings the greatest collective benefit, backing industries and innovations which create opportunities and solve cross-societal problems such as climate change, wealth inequality, and unequal growth in employment. So delivering a sustainable and inclusive wellbeing economy will be underpinned by our three key ambitions of boosting Scotland's competitiveness and growth, tackling inequalities, and transitioning to net zero. And it's also about recovering with improved resilience so that we become more able to deal with any future shocks that lie ahead. Green will be embedded into everything that we do. If we are not improving the well-being of our people and places, then we're simply not recovering. So to conclude, I simply want to say thank you to the sector for all that you've been doing in your communities over the last 5 months and before. You've kept folk fed, you've cared for folk, and you've kept them safe. You've stepped up and helped government when we needed your expertise, and you continue to show that another economic model is possible, one that's rooted in kindness and in empathy. Never more has that ethos been so required and needed to help us as a country to not only recover, but also to heal, to renew and reform. We cannot risk going back to the old ways of doing things. So in amongst the huge and significant challenges that we all face, we need to use the foundations that we already have, our national performance framework, our people, and our collective desire to build a fairer Scotland, to not slip back to the old ways of doing things or to grudgingly accept that inequality and poverty are somehow inevitable, but instead to endeavour to do things better, to believe in our communities, to trust our communities, and to work with our social enterprises and to support you to make this wellbeing journey happen. So thank you for all that you have done over the last 5 or so months. Thank you for all the help that you've given government. Thanks for all that you have been doing in your communities. And I'm happy to take any questions if that's possible. But I sincerely look forward to continuing to work with you to help ensure that the country can recover and can renew and heal itself and make sure that everybody is looked after and has the opportunities that we all want for them. So thank you, and I hope you have a good day.
Thank you so much, Cabinet Secretary, for joining us and for persevering through the tech challenges. Actually, we might have time for one question. So while that's just all getting organised, I wanted to say thank you for your support for and belief in and advocacy of the sector. We've obviously met several times now, and whether it's at a community centre in Campbelltown or at the Scottish Parliament, your genuine interest in social enterprise and your understanding of the role that we can play in solving some of the country's most challenging problems just shines through and really inspires and motivates. And this will be your last conference that you're attending as the Cabinet Secretary, so I didn't want to let the moment pass without saying a real heartfelt thank you from us at CIS and from everyone across the sector. And the comments that we're getting in the chat box is pure envy, to be honest, from everybody in other parts of the UK that they don't have such a supportive government and a CabSec that really gets it. So thank you for sharing your thoughts. Yes, just lots and lots of thank yous. So we do have a question. And what is the role of community capacity building and empowerment in social enterprise post-COVID? I'm going to say that again because I'm trying to read it as I go. This is from Fabio, who says, what's the role of community capacity building and empowerment in social enterprise post-COVID?
Yeah, well, I think it's going to be absolutely critical. In many respects, at the point in which the pandemic happened and we recognised as a government that we needed to get resource into communities pretty quickly. And in many ways that was quite liberating, in that we were able to just direct and help support the things that were kind of emerging through our communities, support the community anchors organisations that we already knew about, supported those that were stepping up and emerging. And it was clear that communities, when they're trusted and given support and given resource, can do enormously good things and respond really effectively with agility to the community need. And again, I said that in my remarks, that the country wouldn't be in this position able to kind of go through the stages of emerging out of lockdown had it not been for the community resilience. So we need to be learning from that. We've set up a social renewal advisory board to try and capture some of the good stuff that's happened, because in amongst the horribleness of this, there has been good stuff. There's been good partnership work. We've made enormous social policy gains that we don't want to lose. And for me, it's also about then recognising that while we've talked about how do we further empower communities, that actually when we trust them to get on with it and remove some of the red tape and the bureaucracy around that, that actually that's been just the thing that communities have needed to be able to flourish. Now, that might not mean that every community is in that position, so we have to recognise that we can't just empower the already empowered, but we need to work hard at building on that capacity and making sure that we learn from what worked well, and ensuring that that is felt equitably, or as equitably as we can, across other communities. And so there's opportunity then about what does that mean for the local governance review that we were working with COSLA on? What does that mean in terms of how we deliver services? And how does that mean for public service reform? Because the big statutory organisations, including government, health, local authorities, sometimes we get in the way of some of this happening. And so I think we need to have a collective look at ourselves and work with our communities to try and work through what are the things that we need to do to make empowerment meaningful, happen and impactful. And I think going forward, if we don't do that, then the resilience of the country just will not be as strong as it could be. But we also need to guard against just offloading loads of stuff onto communities and making sure that, and just thinking that they'll get on with it without making sure that we properly and adequately support them as well. And so there's opportunity in the wellbeing economy, and there's real opportunity with community wealth building and with the local governance review, and really thinking about how we rebalance power. And for me, who's coming into the last few months of my time as being an MSP and as a cabinet secretary, if that's something that we can work through over the next few months ahead, I'll be really pleased. And I can't do that on my own, but that needs to be with you.
Thank you so much.